Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar as part of our weekly series, as part of the hashtag Small Biz UAE initiative here at Shara. We're very much excited to have you all with us today, and I'm very much excited to be joined with a great panel of experts for today's topic, and I'm quite excited about the different things we're going to be discussing today. Hi, Wael, Noor, and Tom. I just want to start off by giving you guys a chance to kind of introduce everyone to who you are, what you guys do, and then we can get started. Wael, you want to go ahead?
I was going to invite ladies first to start. I think that's a good place to go.
So hi everyone, my name is Noora Askar, and I'm a US licensed clinical nutritionist by degree, and the founder of NutriBox. So NutriBox is like your pocket nutritionist that will help you live a healthy life in the palm of your hands, stress-free, and and we aim to empower the Arab world to live a healthy life.
Awesome. Thank you, Noora. And a fun fact, Noora is actually a graduate from the Shara program, so she's a proud alum of Shara. And I think one thing that makes this panel really great and very informative for everyone is that it really combines people from different backgrounds. Noora from a nutrition expertise, and Tom, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself and let everyone know about the great work you guys are doing.
Okay, hi guys. My name's Tom. I'm based in London at the moment, and I work for a company called Embody Fitness. We're a personal training studio in London, and we've got a premises in Dubai as well. We work very much on lifestyle transformations for people, and we also work with corporate wellness. So we go into companies and we do some very small scale wellness projects to very large ones and take over the kind of the whole wellness project within a company. I've been in the health and fitness industry myself for about 16 years now. I've worked in commercial, corporate gyms. I've also worked with professional sports teams, Formula One teams, LMP2 motor racing teams. And I'm also a qualified osteopath. So I oversee our clinical team of osteopaths, sports therapists, and sports massage therapists. And that's really my background, where I'm coming from.
That's great. Thanks, Tom. I feel like in this panel, I'm probably the one with the least number of degrees. But moving on to you, Wael, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. My name is Wael Sayegh. I'm an Emirati. I have been a business owner of a small business for, I think, 7.5 years now. Before Shira was ever invented, we had other establishments. I got my funding from the Khalifa Fund, the support from the Dubai SME. So I'm also a organically grown business. Our focus is largely on the martial arts and strength training, but we also go into a lot of self-developmental aspects with all our students, largely because we connect the physical to the non-physical. It's been a passion of mine. I quit my job, my well-paying but soul-sucking job, and was called crazy. But for my own wellness and for my own sanity, I started Areen martial arts. And 7.5 years on, I'm very happy to be with you guys today.
Great. Thanks for the introduction, Wael. And thank you guys for kind of getting us to know you a little bit better. And I think similarly, we want to get to know the audience a little bit better. So we're going to be launching a poll just to know a little bit more about who's joining us today, a bit of background, and a little bit more about how we can help you guys in terms of the topic that we're going to be discussing today. And just starting off, while everyone is kind of filling out the poll and letting us know about themselves, I think one of the things that Tom and I were discussing yesterday is wellness in itself being a broad topic. And whenever people talk about wellness, they tend to approach it from different perspectives. And I'm curious to know for you, Noora, as a start, what does wellness mean for you? How do you define wellness?
Okay, thank you, Sally. So for me, wellness is about mind-body balance and sort of just being. So it's not just about being healthy or just being fit, but it's about the merge of your sort of mind and body, and just having a state of balance with that. And I found that during my journey as an entrepreneur, that made a world of a difference on my life personally and on my business, and my perspective on wellness and how I sort of integrate that into my life. So it's mind-body balance.
Great. And while I think you have a great background when it comes to martial arts, which is a very, it's not something that we usually hear about on a day-to-day, you know. So when you're introducing this new art form and this new skill and activity for your students, for your community, how do you define wellness for them? How do you promote that concept and make it a fundamental part of the work that they do?
Sure. So on the surface level, a lot of people associate martial arts with physical damage. But the truth of the matter is there's a lot of peace in it. It's just not intuitive. It's not written on the label as such. I think some of the most violent people I've met, whether it's the corporate world, I'm sure Tom would have met a lot of people in that.
Come across a few.
I bet, mate, I bet. But some of the most violent people I know are people that don't physically exercise or are not martial artists. So the wellness aspect for me, through my own experience, I would define, quite similar to what Noora was saying, but in my own words, I would define it as wellness being an outcome and not a goal of a self-organized life. Or if you extend that to business, a well-organized business unit. For me personally, wellness is not an external thing at all. It's not pretty words on a board. It's not a weekend. It's not a meeting. It's something that helps us to subconsciously, I think Noora mentioned the word being, which I completely agree with. For me, it's a question of being in a state of unconscious being that connects you or reconnects you to reality. Because at the end of the day, a lack of wellness is a person living in an unreal world. And the more wellness you have, the more connected you are with reality. And as an entrepreneur or a business owner, however small or large, I'm like a micro business. I don't even get categorized as small. I think I'm even beyond small, but that's fine by me. That's my wellness. So I would definitely see wellness as being a state, an unconscious state that has us connect or reconnect to reality and make decisions in that reality. If we as entrepreneurs or leaders are making decisions that are based on anything but reality, I think we're doing more of a disservice than a service.
Definitely. And as you were speaking, I think I was also thinking of Tom's background and the work that they do. And typically when we think of fitness, we think, yeah, I want to see the weight shedding off. And I'm sure a lot of clients come in to Embody Fitness with that mindset. And I'm curious to know, how do you guys kind of work on shifting that mindset and introducing wellness as a more holistic approach and as a lifestyle, as opposed to kind of having a narrow vision towards it?
Yes, so our goal within the gym always is to make positive changes to people's lifestyle and create good habits for them. We're not looking for quick fixes. Some people come to us thinking that we're a quick 8-week, 12-week fix, but they actually realize that it's more than that. It's about making changes that are going to benefit you through your whole life. Yeah. Because the aesthetic side of it is brilliant, but it doesn't normally give people what they want. They feel like they've come to us because they want a six-pack, when really what they wanted was to feel good, to wake up energized, to have enough energy to play with their children at the weekend, to go and play tennis after work. And so those things, they all start to merge into there. And when you get to know somebody and when you get a little bit deeper with them, you realize actually this is what their goals are. And this is what, being fit, being healthy, what wellness means to them. And it is very individual for people. And that's why we do a lot of our work outside of the gym when we work with corporate companies. It's kind of similar to what everyone has touched on so far. It's about balance, and we look for that physical, social, mental balance. And that's what we take to companies and say, you know, it's not just about getting your employees exercising twice a week. It's not just about getting them to hit their step count. It's about looking at how they are socially at the workplace or outside the workplace, how they are mentally. And we use internal and external companies to come in and specialists to help us with that, to make sure that it is a well-rounded wellness program and not just physical, which is a big part of it. And like I said, it's a balance, and that balance can be different for everyone. Somebody may need more physical than another person, so the balance is always different, but it is about achieving that balance. And that's kind of where I see and how we look at wellness.
Definitely. And I think we got to see some of the results from the poll, and I think we have a bit of everything joining us here at the webinar. And I think a big majority of that are founders or full-time employees that are either working with startups or they're currently in a full-time position and they're looking to start something quite soon. And just to be able to kind of speak to that, I think whenever we speak about startups, or even when we look at startup support and incubators and accelerators that are out there, we think of the business education that they offer, or the technical skills that they give you access to. And one thing that we do here at Shara is that we maintain founder wellness as a key element of any program that we do. Regardless of what stage you are, regardless of what your business does, we've made sure that we give our entrepreneurs in our community access to that, because of how important we view it for the founder's mindset and for starting a business. And Wael, I think just from, you mentioned you had you quit your job for the sake of your wellness, and you kind of prioritize that. And I think it's a great place to start to help us understand the value of wellness when it comes to an entrepreneur starting a startup.
Okay, I think it's everything. It's absolutely everything. I think you mentioned to me, I think yesterday when we were talking, how Shara has a philosophy that you termed as founders first.
Yes.
So you got fitness first and founders first. I'm not a very big fan of fitness first, all due respect, for a number of reasons, but that's the whole episode by itself. But for me, anybody who's going into a startup scenario, because you're mentioning some people want to leave their job possibly, or some people who already left their job. For me, as a founder, it starts and ends with you, really. So however much wellness you have, however much clarity that you have in your being, that will resonate to everybody else. I'm guaranteeing you, if I walk into somebody's home, any one of the startup owners right now, and I see a messy house, if I look at your desktop and I see things everywhere on the screen, I'm guaranteeing you're doing that in many other places. And if you're doing that as the founder in many other places, it's going to show up in your business. Guaranteed, with no fail. Because at the end of the day, you are human. You are limited to your habits. I think Tom mentioned the word habit and healthy habits. The biggest issues with wellness for me, and the challenges that I've come across with myself and my experience and with other people, is dealing with the unconscious habits that people are doing without knowing. And that creates the opposite of wellness and a massive distortion. And all the decisions that are based on that distortion just make the business much weaker. So the more wellness you enjoy as an individual founder, because it starts and it ends with you, in my humble opinion, and obviously I respect everybody else's opinion as well. But without that, I mean, I'm not going to swear because it's a nice setting, but the reality is, if you as the founder are messed up, you have no organization, you're stressed, you have depression, that's going to show. You can't hide that. As a leader, it'll show, especially if you have a little bit of inquiry and people walk in, they'll spot it. You may fool some people for a little while. Sadly, you may even fool yourself for a little while. but there's going to be a lot of damage and a lot of unnecessary pain, suffering, and turmoil that is there because of your lack of wellness. So like I said, it's everything to me based on my experience and based on the people I've worked with.
Thank you, Wael, for also sharing your experience. And Noora, I think you were saying earlier how the realization of the importance of wellness kind of came in more recently. I think we were talking a little bit more about that yesterday. And I want to know what was the aha moment for you in that sense, and what kind of shift did you see happening within NutriBox or within your relationship with your team, or you as a founder on a more personal level?
Okay, so like Wael was saying, my journey was a little bit similar. I was in corporate for about 7.5 years, and I was director of nutrition at a hospital, right? So you have your whole team, everything is organized, and all you have to do, everything is set in place, sort of, and you have the tools and sort of the structure to make things happen. I resigned because I felt that I reached my peak. There's nothing more that I can add to the organization. And I thought that, okay, Noora, you want to do something. I want to give back to the world and sort of help the Arab world lose weight and live a healthier life in a bigger capacity than just my own. And I thought that it would be a piece of cake. By nature, I'm very, I wouldn't say I'm very organized, but I'm very creative. So I'm sort of all over the place, but organized as well. And I thought that it would be very simple to just start my own business. I have all the tools. I've done it. I've done it in a sort of entrepreneurship setting. So I built the clinic at the hospital from scratch, but it was very, very different. So I thought it's a piece of cake. Let's do this. Let's build a business. I started building NutriBox, and I didn't know where to start. I felt very overwhelmed, and things started adding up. And then it got better. That we grew, and we joined Shira. But what I'm trying to say here is that the tipping point for me was when I was burnt out. I had so many things on my plate because I'm a kind of person that finds hacks. And I quickly find hacks, and I always use these hacks to move things along. And sometimes you have to sort of take a step back and build a solid foundation from the start, and build a solid sort of stepping stones to where you want to reach. And sort of the point for me was, if you as a founder, if you're not organized, if you don't have all your ducks in a row, and if you don't have a plan and structure, and if you're always cutting corners, then that will reflect on your team. It will reflect on your business, and things will be manageable for a while, but you won't be able to scale that way. It'll be chaotic. And something else that's very important, your team will look up to you, because if you're disorganized, if you can't convey the message well to them, or if you're always stressed, you won't. It's going to be sort of like a fruit salad, sort of like literally. And that was when I realized. And the thing is, in mass media, they always two things. They glamorize stress and burnout. That a founder has to be stressed. That means that you're productive. That means that you're doing well. No, it's okay. It's cool to always have a skinny latte in your hand and sort of just be buzzing on caffeine. But it's not. And on the other hand, they seem like it's that wellness is such a chore, or that it has to be done in a set way, or it has to be so perfectly done for you to be considered for you to sort of incorporate that into your life. And that's not true. And that's kind of where I found the balance in between the two. And I think that's realistic. I just want everyone here to understand that you can find that balance, and it's subjective to everyone. And we're going to be telling you a few sort of practical tips and hacks that you can do and incorporate in your day-to-day life as a founder that is manageable and effective. And
Definitely. Definitely. And I think I think you and Wael come from more of the startup entrepreneurial side. Tom, Embody Fitness is a big company, right? That's based in more than one location. And I think from a position of leadership, right? Even if you're not necessarily a founder, from a position of leadership, where do you see wellness playing a part, even though you've kind of you're past that initial stage of a startup or a venture? It's a big company that's headquartered in different places, and you have a large team to work with, right? Does wellness kind of take in a back seat in that stage, and you kind of focus at different things, or does it still play a role? And if so, what kind of role does it play in this particular setting?
I think as the company actually becomes bigger, it becomes more important. I think it's easier to lose that personal aspect that you have of a small company. When I came into Embody, we were a smaller company at the time. It's about 5 years ago. And you'll typically find that the smaller the company, the less turnover of staff they have, because it's a more personal basis. But we had a fairly high turnover of staff, and we had to look at that ourselves and go, what's going on here? And so we found that actually starting that wellness program when we were a small company and engaging with our own staff, we allocate all our new staff a mentor that helps them, that looks after them, that takes them through their journey through the company, through the whole time they're there. You don't lose that mentor. And we found that as we've grown, a lot of the things that we put in place as we were a smaller company have naturally evolved. And so being a company that goes out to other corporate companies and looks after their wellness program, we have as a company a responsibility to ensure that we have that in-house. And we employ lots of small kind of tricks and tactics almost that people don't realize. It's not being forced on you, because we found that you can't force wellness onto people. You can't tell somebody you have to do this, you have to do that. But it's asking them, what's going to make your work life better, and how's that going to have a positive effect outside of your life. We have small things that out in our staff room, we have kind of anonymous boxes with a form on it to say, how do you feel today? What could we have done better this week to make you enjoy work more? And people can post that, and they're all anonymous, and we look at those, and we never judge people. We go, okay, this is how the general feeling is in our company. What can we do to improve it? Or this has been a fantastic week. Everyone's happy. It's been brilliant. Let's take that feeling into next week. Let's take that feeling into the next month and try and create that through our company, not just in London, and take out what's working here. Let's get it to work in Dubai. So it's grown with us as we implemented it at an early stage, and it's easy for us because it's not easy, but it's easier because we're a health and wellness company. So we knew what to do, and we could implement the strategies. And I understand that for startups, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's their priority until it's almost got to the point where it's become the priority within the company. So that's how we do it with our staff there. We try and make sure that we look after our staff, and they're sending the message to the people that they're looking after, that wellness is very important.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I think just the couple of things that you guys do at Embody Wellness, I think a lot of people can kind of take on and actually incorporate as well. And I think as you were speaking, I was also thinking for Wael, because when you were working with students, and when it comes to martial arts, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're part of what you preach and what you try to promote for them is being able to kind of take control in terms of how to promote wellness for themselves, and kind of holding yourself accountable for creating a healthier environment for yourself. And at the same time, or on the other side, as part of running a business, some people would argue that it's actually a responsibility across the organization, that organizations should be held accountable for. And I'm curious to know how, for the founder, Wael, how do you find that balance, and what's kind of your outlook into it?
If I understand you correctly, you're picking up on the point of wellness being an individual as opposed to a organizational sort of accountable.
Exactly.
Okay, so I would say ultimately it is individual. Having said that, as a team, because it's like a football team, you can't play by yourself no matter how good you are. But ultimately it is individual in my humble opinion. But we can help people by being examples that they emulate in order to be more productive. as a founder, we obviously have to have a productive business, because as a startup, it's not a question of a bad year or a good year. It's a question of, are you there or are you not there? Yeah. And if it's a question of survival, then everybody on your team has to be productive. And if wellness is, or a lack of wellness, should I say, I think Noora used the word overwhelm, which is, in my humble opinion, the most dangerous, invisible, inner enemy. Okay, so I come from the martial arts world, and one of my heroes is the Japanese samurai, Miyamoto Musashi. Miyamoto Musashi was an undefeated samurai, bit of a loony. Some would call him a psychopath, and there might be some element of truth to that. But he said something really interesting. He said, and they use this example in the corporate world all the time. He said, know your enemy, know his sword. That's just fancy talk or old-fashioned talk for know exactly what's hurting you. If you're unaware of what's hurting you, whether it's a lack of organization, a lack of health, a lack of wellness, you're going to be in so much trouble. And the most amount of trouble is in the martial arts, it's the same thing. The punches and kicks that hurt you the most are the ones you don't see coming. And it's exactly the same thing with running a business, in my humble opinion. So as a founder, I need to make sure all of my team enjoys a normal state of well-being that is a given. It's not, again, for me, I stress it, it's not something external. It's not something I give. It's something I am and I share, and I need everybody to be on board so we can do this together. I can't do this without my team. If they're not well, we're not well. And if we're not well, the business isn't well. So, but ultimately, again, if it's not coming from you, if it's not coming from management, if it's not coming from leadership, then I've got no time for it. I've got no time for somebody who says they sell wellness and they're smoking in the back parking lot. I've got no time for that. I've got no time for people to say, well, let's get our staff healthy, and they're about an inch close to a heart attack on a third marriage, and he doesn't even know what day his kids are born. I've got no time for that. But again, I stress, it has to come from the founder for me, and everything is a reflection of that source.
Thank you. Thank you for that one. And I, to be honest, I very much like the examples you give, because we see this in our real life. You know, we see that contradiction between someone who's preaching wellness or wanting to promote wellness within the team or within the organization. However, if you look at all of their habits from A to Z, they contradict that completely, right? So I know they seem like funny examples, but they're actually real cases. And moving on to you, Noora, I think from where you're at and given where NutriBox is at, I know you guys have grown the team over the past while, and you even have people working remotely for you guys. And I'm also curious to know, how do you promote wellness within your relationship with your team? And I think part of my question is understanding, does it contradict your role as a founder? You know, does it take out anything of your role to go in and ask an employee, hey, how are you feeling today? Or is there something upsetting you today? How do you kind of balance that, given that you've recently kind of grown the team and you guys have expanded?
Good question, Sally. And so by nature, I'm naturally a very sort of empathic, caring person, right? So at the beginning, I felt I was, so you have to sort of, there's a thin line between being over caring and sort of their psychiatrist or their mother figure kind of way, and being a leader, because things get fuzzy. The team might get too a bit confused.
Yeah.
It's so what I'm trying to say is I don't find it hard to every morning, once a week, we have this sort of Sunday morning. It's a Monday morning actually, because here in the region, Sunday is a work day, but abroad it's a weekend, where we have like a morning huddle, and our team here locally and our team abroad through Zoom. We used to do it through Skype. We kind of discuss how the week was before and what our tasks are for the next week. How are they coping, because they're working from home as well. How are they coping with the current situation? And we have that kind of morning huddle, right? And I feel that helps us have a sort of family environment and helps them feel that they're heard. It's not just about work. They're also, so they know they have to be productive, but we also, we care about their well-being, their peace of mind. And I felt that now, during quarantine, it's easier to do that, right? While keeping the sort of the not boundaries, but sort of that
balance.
At the office though, it was a bit different. So at the office, what we did was little things, like for example, when it was prayer time, we would all pray together. So we have a clock that that sort of prays out loud, and we all pray together. Our team members who are not Muslim, I would tell them, use this time to just sit and reflect and just take a time out. You need that. And they think, no, but we have this to do, we have this task to do. And I just say, trust me, take that time out. And it clears their mind. They feel calmer, they feel more productive, they feel energized, even if it's just 10 to 15 minutes to tackle the next task ahead. Something else that a lot of our sort of our customers are happy, like customer happiness officers or data entry officers, the way their diet is, they eat a lot of white carbs, right? And that gives them a rush of energy, but then a crash. We eliminated that from the office. So instead, we started bringing like home baked goods and nuts and lots of water and green tea and black tea instead of coffee. And I noticed that these small changes made a big difference on their productivity, the way they deal with their team members as well, and how they're dealing with customers. Because a lot of these foods, we might not realize it, but they make you jittery, they make you irritable, they make you lethargic. And it does, I've seen it firsthand, it does affect productivity. People would feel sluggish, they would just be there at their desk, but they're not really doing anything. So and we had these sort of hacks in at NutriBox, and we built a culture around it. And sometimes if someone gets a bit fed up or sort of they've had a rough day dealing with customers, I tell them, just go take a walk and come back. So it's okay, just be human, but be productive, but be human. You don't have to sort of slave away, which and I've seen a lot of my friends and we have that misconception that you have to just work, but the person might not be productive. And they'll just burn out, and then you'll have a huge turnover at your startup. And that's at the end of the day, for us as startups, it takes a lot of time and effort to build a relationship, to sort of instill that culture and mindset into your team, for them to then have to sort of leave at the end of the year.
Redo it again. Yeah.
So I think that's very important.
Definitely, I definitely agree. And I think as you were talking, I think some of the things that Tom was saying earlier kind of resonated, in the sense that you guys make sure that you do different things within Embody to be able to kind of gauge where the employees are at. And like Noora said, whether it's diet or whether it's personal things, some days are just your bad days, right? They're just not working out for you. And I'm just curious to know that from a leadership position, how do you approach this? Is the approach that you kind of, is the expectation, is that, okay, if we do XYZ within our company and we do XYZ to our team, then productivity is going to be at 100%. If not, how do we set that expectation? How do you, from a point of leadership, kind of approach that?
Yeah, so we look at the general feel of the company and see how the employees feel, and we work from that. We're not expecting everyone to come in singing and dancing every day, and you know, we're talking about humans here, not computers. So you can't expect everyone to have a good day every day. But what you don't want is you don't want the bad days to outweigh the good days. You want to make your work a nice place to work for many reasons. For as Noora was speaking about, for productivity and for staff retention. It's the investment you put into wellness is an investment. It's not an expense. And some companies will look at that and they'll say, I don't want to spend this much on having a gym. I don't want to spend this much on redoing our canteen. It's not an expense. It is an investment. And companies, the big companies out there, you'll see the Googles, the companies like Lego. It's all about our companies our employees are happy. They smile. They're on campus. Google aren't there because they like people to smile. The company aren't there because happy employees are just, they like to see smiles. It's because they know that if your employees are happier, they will be more productive and they will be more loyal. And one of the biggest expenses for a company in London is staff turnover. It costs a lot of money to recruit good people, and the higher level you're getting, the more it costs. And I imagine it's very similar in Dubai, across the Arab world. And I think it's probably even harder to recruit people. I think there's a slightly smaller pool of highly skilled people there, so it's a big expense, and you're having to get expats to fly out, and there's a lot to it. So companies actually, when they invest in the wellness and they look at their employees and say, what do my employees want, what do they need, and they invest in that, it helps the company. And it's that big investment, and you'll see the company grow, and you'll see your staff retention rates increase. And that's how we've looked at it in our company as a small company, and that's the message we take in and give to the big companies that we work with.
Definitely. And I think you definitely touched on something important that I just want to take a second and just give everyone a chance to kind of absorb it and really have it kind of stick with them, is that even if you do, even if you try to implement different changes in your lifestyle, in your day-to-day, to promote a healthier, more well lifestyle or workplace or whatever it is, sometimes having a bad day is inevitable. Right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're failing at it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not working. But like you said, Tom, we're humans, right? And sometimes that happens. And I just want to kind of give everyone a chance to really just reiterate on that, because I think that's something very important. I think we've seen people that try to, for example, slow down their work pace because they're trying to promote wellness within the team, or even for themselves. And then they have a bad day. And I think what I usually hear from my friends and colleagues, and what I used to say to myself as well, is that it's okay, I work well under pressure, or I work better under pressure. And I think it took quite a while for me to understand that, okay, there's the way that that's interpreted, and the way that I tend to interpret that in my day-to-day is very different, right? And it's not necessarily the right place or the right way to interpret it. And I just wanted to ask you, Wael, because I know you have very strong feelings about this. But how do you, what do you say to the people that say we work well under pressure? And that might be true as a statement, right? And I think it's just the way that we implement it, or the way that we interpret it might be very, very different.
Okay, so I would say, obviously what I'm about to say is my experience, my opinion, and I'm not forcing it on anybody, okay? So this is what I would say to someone who says, I work well under pressure. I'd say you'd work 100 times better without that pressure. The trouble with a lot of people is that we're conditioned from a very early age. Noora highlighted this a little bit. I think Tom also alluded to this point as well. A lot of people, we are conditioned to think busyness equals productivity. I've got to work. I've got to do more. I'm too busy. Things are crazy right now. These are just fancy words for overwhelm. And we've been conditioned to think that is normal. And my experience is that it's not. Many of you will be familiar with the 80-20 rule. I think it was made up by an Italian economist, Prosetto, I can't remember his name, 1896. he found out basically that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. And economists took that and they've seen it pretty much everywhere. Look at your wardrobe. I don't know about everybody else's wardrobe, but I'll speak about my own. All right, 80% of what I have, I'll probably use 20. Again, if I'm using Excel, and I'm no wizard in Excel, but I'm pretty sure I don't use Excel more than 5% of its capacity. The same 80-20 rule, in my humble opinion, equates to productivity at work. All your time being overwhelmed, all your time being busy, about 20% of that is actually doing something productive. 80% of it is not. So why waste all of that energy working on something that's not doing anything? But because we've been conditioned to go, oh, but you got to be busy, you got to be busy. Noora said when she goes for a group prayer group, which is a beautiful a spiritual unity, the ones that don't participate, she mentioned something really interesting. She said, oh, but they feel guilty. I've got task. You see, that is an issue. They're feeling guilty of taking a little bit of a necessary break that makes them better. But because we're so conditioned to think more is not better. More is just more. That's all it is. Ask anybody doing any exercise. Tom will verify this. They come in and just want to do more. And that's probably preventing them from actually getting to where they do. You don't need to do more. You actually need to do less. The 4-day working week is something that I've implemented in my organization. So we work in an organized fashion for 4 days. We're off for 2. We used to do 6 days, by the way. When I first started, I was like, we got to work. Every day is important. Why do we even have to take a day off? What's this nonsense about taking a day off? Go, let's do it. And then it didn't work. People were ill. And that's for a martial arts academy. I don't sell illness. I sell health and well-being. Again, similar to a person in the parking lot smoking. I can't be an instructor that's not healthy. So I think the issue of doing more, being able to produce more with less work, the 80-20 rule is really worthy of investigation. We're spending a lot of time because we're conditioned. I think Noora also said something about doing something and she didn't realize she was doing it. That unconscious behavior is something we really need to inquire about. Because again, that's where the damage happens, is where you think when you think you're right. How many people boast and say, oh, I've got 10 meetings lined up for tomorrow. They actually boast of how busy they are. In fact, it's necessary for them to do that just to justify that they're there. But the fact of the matter is, from my experience, they're actually less productive. They're far, far less productive. You'd be more productive doing less, but doing the things that work, being brave enough to inquire and say, okay, out of what we do, what's really making the difference? Yeah. Let's get rid of everything else and let's just focus on that. It's the equivalent of choosing to do 20 things at 80% or 10 things at 100%. So it sounds better. I'm doing more. I'm doing 20 things. Yeah, but you're dropping a lot of balls. You are seeping funds of 20%, as opposed to taking 10 things and giving those 10 things that you know are going to give you results. And just focusing your 100% on that, and you're doing it really, really well, conserving energy, and you're in a much, much better place. So yeah, I would say somebody says that they work well under pressure. There is an element of truth to that, I'm sure, without a doubt. But in the long run, in terms of sustainability, I think that's something they definitely need to inquire about.
Definitely. And I think I think the way you were speaking made me think that actually we could use a redefinition of the word productivity. You know, we think of productivity, like you said, is more, and that's it's not necessarily sustainable, right? And I think one thing that comes to my mind, I'm not a fitness expert by any chance, but I know that the most productive exercises, Tom, are the ones that you actually give yourself time to recover, and the ones that you're more focused on, as opposed to overworking yourself.
Yes.
And I just
Yeah.
wanted to kind of understand that if you were to redefine productivity, how would you do that?
In the gym setting, exactly what you said. You know, it's a very common mistake for people, overtraining, but they burn out in the gym, they burn out physically, and some people need that release after a long time at work. I think in terms of general productivity, I think it's very, very, very relevant to what's going on in the world today with lockdown. I've spoken to a lot of my clients and a lot of people, and what they've actually found is that they're getting all their work done working from home within 4 or 5 hours, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And they're saying to me, you know, I normally travel for an hour into work. I'm in the office for 10 hours. I'm traveling back. I've got no time. I don't see the kids. But now they're getting up. They're taking the children to school. They're managing to fit their full work day in 4 or 5 hours without the distractions, without the, you know, like Wael said, the unnecessary meetings. And they've still got time left in the day. And they're saying to me, look, Tom, I can do a bit more exercise now. I can do, you know, I've got some time and I can still see my family and see my kids. And it's actually taken away some of the things that were unnecessary in the workplace. People have actually found that they're actually more productive when they're working from home and they're not busy and they're not occupying and they're not commuting. And I think we're going to find that post lockdown, well, we're still in lockdown in London. I think it's been lifted slightly for a lot of you guys. But I think there's going to be a big change in the way people work, and they're going to look at this and go, actually, I don't need to travel for an hour to go and sit at my desk. I don't need to travel an hour home after being there all day, when I can actually do my work from home. And apps, stuff like this, like Zoom, has made it much more accessible. And people are kind of, everyone, it's been forced onto everyone now. And so everyone is finding that they're able to work that way and become very productive. So that's why I think the term of productivity it's going to change within the workplace within the next few months, years.
Definitely. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's an interesting time to witness and see how 2020 ends up changing a lot of what we thought we knew about the workplace and about our productivity and about how we approach work as well. And I think going back to you, Noora, I think one of the things that we were talking about is how, similarly, like we were saying, a lot of this transition, as some of the lockdown is being lifted off in some areas and people are going back to work, there comes another shift, right? So it seems that we just kind of got acclimated to this change of work from home, and we're about to witness another shift of going back to the new normal. I think we might have gotten disconnected from Noora for a little bit, so I'm going to redirect the question to you, Wael. And going back to the new normal, like we all know, is that something that you think is going to change or bring about a new set of challenges for us in terms of wellness? Because like Tom said, people have already started to kind of get an understanding of how work from home can be more beneficial, can be more productive, and how does this new shift kind of change things, or what set of challenges can we expect?
I think, at least in my humble opinion, it won't go back like it was before. If you have awoken, if you've tasted the fact that you don't need to do that stupid commute for 2 hours, you don't need to sit in those meetings with those egotistical, negative energies and produce more work for the company and get more results. Once you've tasted that, and you choose to stay awake to that and not to go back asleep and put yourself through that torture again, if that's the case, life shouldn't go back to what it was before. And then it's a question of dialogue. Okay, so if you're an employee or part of a company management, it's like, okay, we can get more things done, we can cut our costs, and we can be more productive if we change things in accordance to the reality we're in. The epidemic, regardless of where we're from, I know is very painful. My industry, Tom's industry, I'm sure Noora has been affected as well. I mean, we had to close. I mean, that's semi-suicide if you're not prepared for that, and most of us weren't. But the fact of the matter is, if we're going to survive, then again, it's a question of having the wellness in place as a given that allows us to live in a reality that makes decisions. Now that Corona, the epidemic, has given you a taste of reality, everything that we've discovered right now was there. It's not like it wasn't there. It didn't create it. It's just that you've woken up to it. That's it, in my humble opinion. So I think going forward is going to be a really interesting thing to study. And I really, really hope for all our wellness, our global wellness, that we finally understand that it really wasn't healthy where we were. And this was exactly what we needed. Unfortunately, humans don't learn. Noora said this. She actually had to get to burnout. She literally, in my terms, I say that had to happen to her before she goes, you know what? I need to change that. And I think it's a beautiful place to be. If you're willing to go, enough is enough. I'm going to give myself that wellness. And that's such a brave thing to do, because most people convince themselves that they're not good enough for that they can't do that. And we were talking about good days and bad days, and Tom was talking about that in the industry he's involved in. Of course, you're going to have good days and bad days. But I really just hope our going forward is one that reflects wellness based on the current reality that we're now awake to.
Definitely, definitely. And I think listening to you, Wael, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is asking Noora if there's anything that she had kind of learned or experienced through the past time working from home in terms of the change that it brought to your relationship with your team, and something that you know you want to take forward, even though some restrictions might be lifted and you might be kind of resuming more normal working hours. What was kind of, for you as Noora, the founder, what's kind of one of the learning points that you want to take on in the future?
So I kind of, my redefinition of productivity now, it's all about planning and prioritizing. And like, I think it was Tom or Wael was saying that, Tom, you were saying that people were commuting, right? So they're commuting, so they're wasting a lot of time. And when they're working from home, they finish their work in 5 hours and they're like, oh, what? Okay, so what do I do now? And I think there was a misconception that we have to always be busy. And if we're not busy, that means that our business is going to fail, or that something is missing, something has to be done. And I think now it's about productivity is not about being busy. It's about being efficient, planning, so you don't end up working under pressure. And when you're not working under pressure, you're actually more productive, you're more balanced. Being sort of centered is very important. And just, I think this time for a lot of people, it kind of grounded them. There's a lot of self-reflection. And for me personally, that's what happened the past sort of few months.
Yeah.
And I want to take this, so now moving forward, we sort of restructured, and there's going to the way we work at NutriBox, and the way we tackle tasks, the way we set KPIs, the way we tackle them. And I know it sounds a bit off, but for us, this COVID has been very enlightening. I think the whole world needed it in some form or other. And there's a huge silver lining from this. And we can redefine a lot of things and a lot of misconceptions that we had. And we wouldn't have had the luxury of time to do so if COVID didn't happen. And
Definitely.
I think it's for the greater good, like as individuals, for the environment, for our sort of company cultures, everything.
Definitely.
All around.
Definitely. And I think I'm conscious of the time, and I want to make sure we have enough time for the Q&As we have coming up. And I just want to also kind of take a minute. I know we've kind of spoke about a lot of different points. I want to take a minute and recap this for everyone that's with us today. And I think really a lot of what we spoke about kind of revolved around redefining some of the misconceptions that we have, which is working under pressure and productivity meaning more, and really taking the time as a founder or as an employee, or even if you're unemployed, right? Even if you're trying to figure out what to do, and there's that urge that's forcing you to kind of do more, do bigger, really taking the time to go back and redefine what that means. How can you better define productivity, and using wellness as an engine to that, as opposed to a secondary element, because really it's again, like Tom said earlier, we're humans, and our wellness as humans plays a big part in everything that we do. We're not computers. We're not really programmed to do one thing, and wellness is more of a complementary luxury. But no, it's actually a core element of us being able to do what we need to do as humans. And I think just wrapping up before we get into the Q&A, and I was saying this to all of the panelists when we had previous conversation, is that one of the main things that I'd love to be able to provide the audience today is key actionable steps that they can do. And we've spoken about a range of things today. And so I'm going to give the panelists a chance to kind of give us a little bit of their key takeaways that they would like people to take on, things that they can take on and implement starting today or starting tomorrow, that can bring about some kind of change or improvement into their day-to-day in different elements. And Tom, I'm gonna go ahead and start with you.
Yeah. So I think what we do generally with companies, we go in there and look, and as I said, we break wellness down into its three main components, which is physical, social, and mental. And so I think all companies, all individuals on here should look at that and say, I'm going to start with one thing in each of those. So I'm going to take one physical wellness action point. And that could be walking, in London, we say to people, we want you to walk a minimum of 10,000 steps a day. I know that's slightly harder in your part of the world where it can be 50 degrees heat. For us, it's normally raining, so you can put an umbrella up and walk. So we look at small physical targets for people and say, if it's just using a standing desk at work, so you're burning more calories while you're working rather than just sitting there activating some muscles. So you've got a physical goal, a social goal, and that can be anything. That's just interaction in the workplace. I think that's one of the things that people have struggled with during COVID. It's nice to work from home, but people have missed that social interaction. So be that, let's say that once a month, we're going to have a team building exercise. And then the mental side of things, it's almost the hardest thing to detect. If you can detect there's a problem, then it's probably gone a long way, and it's too far. So we say to people, provide people with information that can help them with their mental wellness, but also provide them with the information of where to go if they need to talk to somebody. So just providing phone numbers or access to helplines is a really good way to make sure that people's mental health is addressed as well. So, and if these don't seem appropriate in your company, you can have a look and just go, actually, our physical goal for our company can be this. And it can be very simple. Our mental goal can be this. Our social goal can be this. And just to find one of each and start with that, and to see if you get a positive response from that. That's how I would address it. A very small change in each of the three key areas of wellness.
Definitely. Thank you for that. I think these are, they're very, very important. And I think they're very easy to kind of catch on and be able to implement, and definitely very flexible as well. Wael, I know it's hard to teach people martial arts over Zoom, but if you were to kind of have any takeaway for the audience today, things that they can implement in their day-to-day, what would that be?
So I would invite all the audience to do an inquiry, okay? And I think inquiries invite the person to look at what they can do inside themselves, and then they will find the solutions themselves. I think we're all equipped for success. The universe wants you to succeed. The only thing in between that is you and what's stopping you. An inquiry for me is a practice I've picked up from studying Zen. A lot of martial artists, because you have the yin and the yang component. You've got the hard and you've got the soft. So to appreciate the hard, you must understand the soft. A doctor will know how to heal, but a doctor also knows where to cut to kill you. It's just that one goes with the other. It's just a question of balance. So I would invite an inquiry, and I'll even give you some stages to it if you wish. But the ultimate inquiry is this. Ask yourself, what if you could be more productive doing less? What if you could be more productive doing less? Okay, just play about with the idea. To help you take a step forward, go back to that 80-20 rule, okay? What if it could be? What if? I love that what if, because it opens up so many possibilities. right? So what if 80% of your happiness as a human being came from 20% of what you actually do? What if 80% of your happiness was coming from 20% of what you actually do? What would you stop doing? Okay? Last part, and this is only for the brave, because we're all human, right? As Tom was saying, everybody's got a different level that they need themselves at, and every level is perfect. But my last invitation for an inquiry based on the 80-20 rule is what if 80% of your joy and fulfillment came from interacting with 20% of the people that you're with, including family. In fact, especially family. Who would you spend less time with? That is an inquiry I would invite you to participate in.
I think it's a very dangerous inquiry, but it's.
I'm a martial artist. If there was no danger there, I wouldn't be here. It's that simple, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think just listening to you say that, I was actually taken aback by what that answer could be, because if I know the answer, then it becomes you'll have to action it, and you don't know how that's going to play out. But I think there's a lot of merit in having inquiries, like you said, and I love that philosophy. Wael, thank you for sharing that with us. Noora, I think I'd love to, from your background, I'd love to know a little bit more on the more practical things that are maybe nutrition based that we can kind of implement, that you think people can take on and easily make a change or make smaller improvements in their day-to-day. Because like Tom said, there are really 3 elements to wellness, and all of them kind of tie together. And I think each one of them kind of tackled one side, and I'd love to know from a nutrition side, what do you recommend?
I recommend a couple of things. One of them being, I don't know if any of you have heard of adaptogens. So adaptogens are herbs that help your body deal with stress effectively, and that could mean different things to different people. For example, some people, when they stress out, so when you stress out, your body releases cortisol, right? And that wreaks havoc on you physiologically on so many levels. Some people start getting hair loss, for example. Some people get migraines. So your body reacts in different ways to stress. Adaptogens help your body deal with stress in the most effective way possible. And I would invite you to research rhodiola, and you can find them very easily in Dubai and in any pharmacy, Holland and Barrett's, Life Pharmacy. So rhodiola, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's ashwagandha. I always pronounce it wrong. So it's rhodiola, ashwagandha, and schisandra. Each one of those adaptogens help your body deal with stress in a different way, right? So schisandra is more neuroprotective, for example. Rhodiola helps you combat stress effectively. Ashwagandha helps your body manage the effects of cortisol. So please research those and try to incorporate one of those adaptogens into your diet. The second thing is meditation. It doesn't have to be long minutes or long hours, just little small pockets of time to reflect and just make yourself a cup of tea, or a golden latte. Try to have substitutions to your go-to energy sources. So instead of having a cup of coffee, you can have your cup of coffee, but have another cup of, let's say, matcha or a golden latte that would have certain micronutrients that would improve your overall well-being and would have a positive impact on your body, your system, and on you mentally as well. And what else? I lost my train of thought.
I think 2 is great. 2 is a good number. Yeah, and I think I thank you for recommending those as well. I know I'm definitely going to go ahead and start researching them. I haven't really heard of them before, but I'd love to know more about them. And just going through some of the questions, I want to make sure that we're able to answer some of them. So the first question that we got is probably, and I think maybe part of this was answered, but curious to know, Tom, some of the audience members are asking, what is your wellness routine? What kind of practices that you go through on a daily basis? And hopefully maybe that can enlighten some of the people joining us today on what to incorporate.
Yeah, so for me, it's, a lot of it at the moment is physical, which trying to do exercise and get out and participate in stuff. It's very easy with London still being in lockdown, gyms aren't open, shops are still closed. It's as you guys went through, it's a case of actually I have to sometimes say to myself, look, you're going to feel better for this. So yeah. I think exercise is a big part of it. I still try and hit my 10,000 steps a day because I know the importance for that for me physically, but also mentally. It's a very good time. And as we touched on the meditation, I've tried meditation lots of times. I find it very difficult. I know it's something that you have to practice, and the more you do, the better you get at it. But I find for me, walking on my own is almost like meditation for me. It's my own time where I can think and reflect, and I find that very beneficial for me physically and mentally. I think routine, something that we touched on earlier, is very important for wellness. I really emphasize to my clients and all the corporate clients who work with the importance of sleep and recovery. And I found that having a good routine in the evenings is paramount, especially during this lockdown. I found a lot of my clients and a lot of my friends have been going to bed a lot later than they normally would, getting up later. I myself have managed to keep my times pretty much exact. I track my sleep and my sleep cycles, etc. So I know what works. And through doing that, I found that actually for myself personally, if I go to bed and I read for 15 minutes before I sleep deeper, I get into deeper cycles. We touched on some of the supplements. I take ashwagandha and magnesium every night, and that helps me sleep. And I've monitored that, and I know that works because when I don't take them, I can see the difference in my sleep cycles through my tracker. So that's what I do really to make sure that my wellness is there. There's the simple small things like making sure I'm drinking enough water through the day, which is easy not to do when you're at home and you're working from home. So I'll always say to people, get an empty 2-litre bottle in the morning, fill it up, or get one out the fridge, and make sure that you've drunk that through the day. There's lots of little bits. And again, when we're talking about Noora, talking about the food, it's easy to snack on high sugary carb foods. So making sure you have available to you healthy foods, because at the end of the day, most people want the healthy choices, but it's the accessibility and the ease of the unhealthy choices that are there. So you take the nutrition part and put that into the physical element of the wellness. It's very important that you're not creating barriers to your own wellness. You're making it as accessible and as easy as possible.
Definitely. Any recommendations for apps or even wearables that you're using to track your sleep? I think one of the members in the audience is interested to know.
This is the one I currently wear. It's called a Whoop band, which is WHOOP, and you keep that on 24 hours a day. And that basically tracks all your sleep cycle for you. You wear it through your sleep. It tells you what sleep you've had in REM, in slow wave sleep. But it also tells you, it monitors how much exercise you do based on heart rate. So it would tell you, wake up in the morning, it would say to you, you shouldn't train today, you're under recovered. And it's a very good tool, and it normally always correlates to how I actually feel. And then by backing off for the day, the next day, you'll generally come back and it'll say, you've had a great recovery. Yeah. This is what you do. And this is what I've used as a tool over the last 6 or 7 months to work out the routines that work for me, how I respond to things. You actually enter if you've had alcohol or if you've had sugary foods, and you know how you respond to different drinks and to different food groups and what you've done. So it's a really good way of tracking. That's my favorite at the moment. There are obviously a lot of different ones out there, but it's the one I use and recommend to my clients.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. I think the second question for you, Wael, is typically how can we best differentiate negative feelings, so things that are either a warning sign that something is not right and we need to change something, as opposed to us just having a bad day, right, which is something more normal. What's that thin line, or what's that threshold emotionally, and how can we best identify it?
Okay, so this is more of an emotional as opposed to a physical feeling. Okay,
Yeah.
so a lot of that is the brain, all right? A lot of that is how you relate to the thinking. And here's the thing about thinking, and this is to me, again, my humble opinion based on my experience, this is the whole point of meditation. Meditation is not about stopping your thoughts or having a nice calming feeling, although that's great and you'll get that. For me, meditation is about detaching from my mind so that it doesn't have so much power over me. It ultimately rests at the core point of my experience that says, I am not my thoughts. So whether my thoughts are good or whether my thoughts are bad, they don't define me. They're a part of me, without a doubt, but I'm not a slave to my thinking, because my thinking will change. My feelings will change. One day I feel good, one day I feel bad, and there's no reality based on that. So these thoughts, in my humble opinion, like I said, they're not real. So I'm not going to make a decision based on how I feel. I think it was Ali ibn Abi Talib, karamallahu wajhah, radiyallahu anh, that said, don't make a promise when you are happy, or don't make a decision when you are angry. Yeah. Because when we get happy, we're like, oh, I'm happy, I'm going to give you this and this and this. That it just resonates with the fact that the difference between a good day and a bad day is ultimately an illusion. It's your brain telling you, oh, today's a good day, when there's no base on that, or today's a bad day, there's no base on that. So it's simply a question of an awareness. I can limit the whole of the martial arts world to one word, and that's being aware. And very often, the biggest robber of wellness is your mind. It's the thoughts that are having complete control of you. As a martial artist, if I have to defend myself, or when I'm performing any movement, the highest level, ask Tom about any high performance level athlete. The highest performance is where what the Japanese samurai used to call no mind, where you're not consciously making a decision. You are free flowing. You're in the moment. You're in the present. That's where the best things come from, because actually that is what is. That is the reality. Everything else in your mind is a distortion of that. So I hope that's how I'd answer that question. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Wael. And I think the last question we've gotten for Noora, and I think that's more on the startup world and kind of being able to manage a lot of the things that you do. What were some of the most helpful productivity tools that you're using right now that you might recommend for other people to use?
Okay, so, and actually I learned a lot of these tools from Shira, from our programs, honestly. So we use Trello. So we use Trello, like having a Kanban board where you can plan and track your activities. Let's say your product timeline at the same time. So you have Trello. We use Slack to communicate with everyone. Slack may not be very sort of user-friendly for everyone, so we kind of move between Slack and Skype. So Skype is our go-to most of the time. So we have our Skype groups. We use, what else do we use? We use Trello, Skype, Slack.
Yeah, I think when it comes to...
Oh, sorry, Basecamp. Basecamp is excellent. We use, yes, we use Basecamp as well. So we use each of these tools for sort of different functions to help either manage tasks, either to plan out our product timeline, to prioritize. For example, Trello helps our UI UX designer coordinate with with our iOS and Android developers, and coordinate with myself, who's managing marketing, to see if, for example, can I launch this campaign? Is my product ready enough? Have we, so sort of use that to
I think that's a great collaborative tool, because especially with team members with different functions. So thank you for that. I think that kind of wraps up the Q&A. I think just a bit of feedback. I think a lot of the audience members are personally thanking you, so I'm just putting forward that message on their behalf, thanking you guys for a lot of the things that you shared with us today, and thank you guys for a great session. I do wish, it's the end of the week, so I do hope everyone kind of takes off the weekend to think about a lot of the things that we spoke about today, and hopefully kick off Sunday or kick off next week with a whole new fresh outlook on how to approach wellness and productivity in their workplace and in their personal lives. So thank you guys. Thank you, Noora, Wael, and Tom. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. I hope you guys have a great weekend ahead.